Well, welcome everybody to the Babies in Common videocast and podcast.
Hello.
I'm Jeanette, the owner of Babies in Common, lactation consultant, childbirth educator, retired birth doula, mother of two. And Melissa, over to you.
Hello, my name is Melissa Ann, and I'm a registered nurse in the state of Massachusetts. I've been practicing for about 14 years, and I've done all sorts of things in obstetrics, high risk, low risk, inpatient, outpatient. I'm a childbirth educator with Babies in Common, and also a lactation counselor, and a mom of 3 little kids, and I'm happy to be here with you all today.
Awesome. So today is April 27th and 2020, and we're going to be discussing the postpartum quarantine, which is also dubbed the 4th trimester. Melissa, was there a disclaimer that you were going to talk about?
Sure. Yeah, we have this great episode for you all today. But before we get underway, as always, anything Jeanette or I or our guests say during this conversation is not to be taken as medical advice. Please consult your own qualified healthcare professional for questions about you or your baby's health. And also, the opinions expressed during this conversation are personal to the host, guests, and participants, and do not ever represent the views or policies of any current or former employer, including hospitals and clinicians. Our conversations are HIPAA compliant. And for a full review of our disclaimer, please visit babiesincomm.com/disclaimer. Also, this video cast is interactive, so if you are able to keep your video on, we love to see your beautiful faces. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free to wave your hand, unmute and ask, or put up the clapping emoji, which is at the bottom of your screen, your Zoom screen, or you can even type in the chat box if you would like as well. So, and Jeanette is showing us her clapping emoji right now. So that's that. On to our special guest.
All right.
Want to do the introductions, Jeanette?
I will. So I'll do it. So Heather Chiancola is with us today, and she's a certified birth and postpartum doula, a Reiki 2 energy worker, which she can explain what Reiki 2 is versus Reiki 1 and Reiki Master. It's very cool stuff. She's also the mother of 2 boys, and she lives and practices around Concord, Massachusetts. She also has a degree in nutrition and dietetics with a focus on pregnancy, lactation, and children's eating patterns from birth to age 5. So I think there's a whole other session that we could do with you about that topic for sure. Today, we're going to shift our focus to preparing for your postpartum recovery and how to set yourself up for success so you don't just survive through it, but you actually can thrive during the 6 to 12 weeks after your baby's birth. So thank you all for joining us today. I know some of you are due soon and some of you have experience having a baby already. So it'd be great to have your input, questions, comments, experiences. That would be really make it more fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Heather. So let's start off because a lot of people know what a birth doula is. They've heard about that, somebody who is trained to provide physical and emotional support to a couple in labor. But what is a postpartum doula? Because a lot of people haven't heard that. And how does a postpartum doula, say, differ from just like a nanny or a baby nurse, as sometimes people hire?
Okay, so my elevator speech about a postpartum doula is that they are a magical fairy that comes into your home and just makes everything better and easier and cleaner and celebrates and commiserates in a way that even your most compassionate and skilled family member or friend might not be able to. And oftentimes can just help ease the transition by showing the family, whether it's a family going from 2 adults to their first baby or from their 3rd kid to their 4th kid, like, okay, this is how we're going to make things work going forward, starting now. So that is what I do. I didn't know what a postpartum doula was before I had children, and if there is one thing that I would change about how I had my kids, it would be having hired a postpartum doula. I think a large portion of the reason that I am one is because it's sort of like self-healing. Like, oh, I wish I had this kind of support. I had my kids not in quarantine, they're 9 and 7, but in Washington State, and all of my family was in Massachusetts. And so it might as well have been quarantine. Didn't go anywhere and it didn't do anything. And I was first of my friends to have kids and stuff. So I just kind of winged it. And good news, they're still here, but I would probably have enjoyed that whole period a lot better had I had some outside help. So some of the things that I can do as a postpartum doula is be there to help be like, this is totally normal. Like, I know it's kind of crappy that this is what it is, but like, don't worry, or like, this is something we can do to fix it. Or on the flip side, this is maybe not what we're looking for, and now we need to call in the big guns. And so we're going to call an IBCLC, or you're going to call your pediatrician, or you're going to call your doctor, and we're going to figure this out. Or I mean, like, people think that what I am there for is like specifically for postpartum mood disorders, and that like that is all that I'm focusing on. My whole idea is to avoid having any postpartum mood disorders, obviously, but I don't treat any postpartum mood disorders, and if I see one cropping up, like, that is one of the good things about having this outside help, is being able to like turn to the partner and being like, is this like normal behavior? Is this worrisome behavior? Okay, no, we're gonna call in like those big guns, and like we're gonna find a therapist for you. And all of this can still be done virtually. The things that postpartum doulas can do that cannot be done virtually is help you out around the house, like making sure that your water bottle is filled and that you've eaten and you've taken any pain meds, or that you're sleeping or showering or any of those things. Those are much harder to do virtually. So I am still working in homes right now, but with, slightly different entrance plan that has happened in the last 4 years of my life, that involves masks and lots of disinfecting and clothes changing and all of that good stuff. So one of the big things that I think is a difference between like a nanny or a nurse is that, like, while I obviously care very much about the baby and the well-being of the baby, my actual primary focus is on mom and getting her recovered as seamlessly and pleasurably as possible. Birth is beautiful and amazing and fantastic and totally traumatic to your body. And women are superheroes and they can do it all, but let's stop making them do it all, because it would be much better if they could just like sit for a second and like let their wounds literally heal.
That's
so true.
so very true. I like that you say it like it is. I feel like Jeanette and I both say it like it is, and sometimes that's hard to hear, but it's true, and I'd rather people be prepared. Even though giving birth can be, and I hope it is for everybody listening that is expecting, an incredibly wonderful, positive, empowering, life-changing, amazing experience, you just grew a human being in your body for 9 months and then got it out of your body somehow, either by pushing it out of your vagina or getting it cut out of your abdomen. And both of those things take a lot of hard work, and it's very exhausting, and your body's going to take, many days and many weeks and many months to recover. One thing that Americans do very badly that I feel like many of my immigrant patients' families do very well, especially I've had the privilege of taking care of a lot of families that are moved here from India, from China, for example, and their mother or mother-in-law, or sometimes both, will come over from India, from China, from wherever, and live with that new family for the first 3 months. And that mother or mother-in-law will be doing almost all of the cooking and cleaning and laundry and, taking the baby when the baby, needs to be shushed and put to sleep so that the mother can rest and recover. And is also doing things like preparing special foods for the mother, preparing special teas for the mother, helping keep her warm, helping to cocoon her in a postpartum quarantine, kind of. They call it, was it the lying in period? And that's a wonderful thing that all birthing people not just deserve, but they need. They need that time to recover, like you said. And in America, we expect people to send their partner back to work immediately or in 2 weeks, and to, at that point, then do it all, like you said. And that will lead to higher rates of postpartum depression and anxiety. And as an OBGYN nurse, I would have people calling me in my office, you know, with heavy bleeding a few weeks postpartum, or anemia, or, you know, just really having trouble with exhaustion and mood swings, and because they have been doing too much too soon. So it can take not only a mental, but a physical toll on your body as well. So yeah, I like that you call it a fairy, because it is kind of magical, but it should be what everybody gets, right?
I feel like a lot of people don't know what a postpartum doula is, but once I mention it, they're like, well, I wouldn't be able to afford that. And I think what we have to always remind people of is that, yes, there are some situations where we really need more integrated with the state care, so that every family would have access to this kind of a care. That would be the dream. But sometimes family members can do more than we ask them to, and they would like to. And so, whether that's themselves nearby, bringing over food or going shopping or coming over and cleaning your bathroom and doing your dishes, we just oftentimes in our culture don't ask. And sometimes it's not even cultural, it's just personal. You know, we don't want to ask for something. But there's also situations where maybe that person could pay for that for you or contribute to that cost. You know, you think about these families who, you know, I've worked with a lot of them as well from India, and how much does a ticket cost from India? It's a lot of money. So whether the family, the parents who just had the baby are paying for the in-law to come over, or both of them, or the parents are paying, there's clearly a financial investment there. And I think if we, for families who can come up with that, I think, you know, postpartum doulas don't cost as much as an airplane ticket, unless you have them work for you for weeks and weeks and weeks, which sometimes is really important and necessary. But even if it was just for the first couple weeks to get you set, I think it's really, really a thing I wish we would integrate more into our health system.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And as much as the postpartum doula cares for the mother's physical and emotional health, they also can be an education resource, right? So I'm sure you're doing a lot of teaching with the parents and teaching with the partners about caring for their newborn, right? I see your head nodding. And also, I remember when I met you, you were telling me about one of your favorite things to do was, you know, after you've, you know, entered the home and greeted the parents and helped get the mom settled, you know, once the mom or the birthing person has fed the baby, you will baby wear the baby while picking up the house and doing their dishes while she takes a nap, or he, you know, that person takes a nap. I'm like, that's amazing. So, you know, it's more than just a house cleaner, although a house cleaner is a great gift to give a new family too. But, you know, it's somebody that is there to nurture you and your partner and your baby, and is specifically trained and has a lot of experience with doing that for new families, for brand new families. And as my midwife, Marianne, would say, every new baby is an adjustment. So even if it's your third baby or your 23rd baby, if you've had 22 other babies, this baby is still going to be an adjustment for your family, and it's still going to be something you got to try to figure out how to work in. And that is so absolutely true.
Yeah.
So.
And so sometimes like I do like very silly things too. Like it's like I typically work a lot of overnight shifts, which again is trickier virtually. And a lot of times there's older siblings, but I used to be a preschool teacher as well. So I leave like random things for the older, like I'll build like a blanket fort or something, just like in the corner of the room, and then when they're like,
that's
just like
adorable.
set up their dollhouse, it's really funny, or like any of those things, and then just try to like buy the parents like 20 minutes of solitude in the morning. make some Play-Doh. That's like a weird doula thing I can do. I'm very good at making Play-Doh. Not for the baby.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And another mention about the cost. Sometimes people are overwhelmed, like, well, I couldn't afford a doula for 6 weeks, coming 3-4 times a week. Well, what if it was just a couple times the first week your partner went back to work? You know, like that. If you think about it in small increments, most postpartum doulas, and correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, but they do like a by the hour, or by the day. And so you could just contract with them for a couple hours or a couple of days, and you know, eat one less meal out, or takeout meal, you know, that week before you have the baby or something. It can certainly be more affordable than people think. So especially if you don't have family around or friends around that can help. And since things are even trickier now with the quarantine, that actually brings me to my next question, because we were talking about this earlier, Heather. If, you know, partners are already have a lot of responsibility when they bring home a new baby, but even more so now with this global pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about what you would recommend as a postpartum support specialist, that, you know, what partners can do to really help support that new mom, that new person who has just given birth?
Yeah. That is probably my favorite thing to talk about, because I feel like we're in this really awesome place this is like a little bit of a side tangent, really awesome place in our society where partners are expected to be pulling 50-50, right? Which is awesome. And they're like here for it. Like, they want to be a really big part of this family dynamic. That's, you know, it's not like, well, great, you had the baby, now I'm going back to work or whatever. But they have not, most of the time, been raised that way. So we're asking them to jump in to this role that they're super excited to do and have literally no idea how to do it. So enter someone helping out. So my first suggestion, so for anyone expecting a baby soon, I highly recommend this for both of you. This is a little bit gory maybe, but take a look at your placenta. Because your baby is super cute and they are awesome, but your placenta is not necessarily very tiny. Even small placentas are a pretty good size when we consider the fact
about the size of a salad plate, I would say. It's pretty big.
Yeah, that is the size of the wound on the inside of your body. And great, you feel awesome, or maybe you don't feel awesome and you're walking around and you're feeling okay. No. You have a invisible to your, naked eye wound on the inside of your body, and you need to heal from that. Now, if you're super grossed out by it or just don't get around to it because, you just had a whole human, then I always encourage the partner to take a look at it, because it's please visualize and remember this when you see her getting up to go and do something, to tell her to sit back down. Even if she's it would feel really good to move my body, be okay, because you also don't want to fight with her, okay, make me do that for a minute, but then please sit back down. Encourage the rest. If you're doing breastfeeding burns 500 calories a day. At your most pregnant, to sustain a giantly rapidly growing human being, you need 300 extra calories a day, and for breastfeeding you need 500. Has anyone ever done a spin class? I have not, but from what I understand, they are very intense.
From what I understand, they are pretty tiring. I agree. I can't say I've done one, but
people though. But it is the equivalent of an insane spin class that you are burning by, I don't want to say doing nothing, but you're not even moving. Not to mention,
manufacturing all of the nutrition for your baby. That's what I say. Right. You are literally manufacturing all of the nutrition for your baby. And not to mention the caloric need and metabolic demand on a body that's just given birth, right?
Yeah.
Or gone through surgery. The wound healing, the blood making, right? The fluid making, and, you know, so it's the tissue rebuilding. This is all stuff that requires rest, calories.
Right. And we're asking your body to do all of this without sleep. So super fun. And it is super fun, but you're also now on in a different way than you've ever been on. If it's your first baby, you're on in a way of like, are they breathing? Are they like, do we need to do a diaper change? And so like all of that is also adding to your like heightened state. And you're doing all of this with that. So I try to remind partners like, okay, there's a lot going on that you cannot even see. So we're going to take all of the things off of her plate. She is in charge of feeding, sleeping. She's in charge of chewing the food, but the preparation of it should not even be on her. And so there are, again, some super, like, there are partners who can be hands-on, right? Like there is a situation that we're dealing with where it's like they get 3 days off or something, and that's tricky. So what are some other ways that we can get the partner involved that helps the whole family out? There's a website called Meal Train. If you've never heard of that, that's a really awesome thing to recommend to people. And this is like where I use the like blame it on your doula thing, because a lot of people, like you were saying, Jeanette, don't want to ask for help. And this can be true of outside, you know, friends, family, community members, church members, but it can also be true of their partner. So trying to get into that conversation with the partner, and like, whether I am your doula or not, any of you, you can literally just blame me if you feel like asking for something feels weird. You can be like, oh, my doula, make up my name even, I don't care, and say like, recommended that we make this Meal Train website and send this out, because people love helping. They really do. They really want to be helpful. And a lot of times if you don't give them a task to do, they're going to do one you don't want them to do, and that's not as much fun. So a Meal Train is a really easy thing that you can set up. You can set up, I sound like an advertisement for this website right now. You can set it up with like specific dietary requirements or likes, dislikes, a pickup and a drop off time, how many meals per week you want. So like people like to overcook too. So you can say like, we're getting food on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays or something like that. And then you send out that little link to everyone in your contacts and say like, sorry, this is weird, but my weird doula told me I had to send it out. And then you get a lot of free food, and that is the greatest thing in the entire world. Also coming up with a checklist. This is a little bit more if you're having somebody like come over, but you could still have it there. And if you do like a Zoom call with people who are trying to meet the baby and they're like, what can I help with? You can be like, oh, let me go get the checklist that my doula made me get or whatever. And you get that, and it says, you know, like, is your water bottle full? Is your next snack prepared? Is your, like, do you have enough? By the way, I highly recommend Depends over, sorry, the mesh underwear. I know some people really love that, but I have a love for Depends. You know, like, do you need any of those stocked at your house? Do you, have you showered today? Like, is there any way I can like help facilitate a shower for you today? Would you prefer to nap? Do you want me to hold the baby? Do you want to hold the baby while I do other things? And just coming up with all of the things. And some of these you won't know until you're in the weeds of postpartum, but then you write them down, and then you blame them on your doula, and you say like, yeah, she is really a pain and always tries to make sure that I'm eating all of the time, because I really need you to eat all of the time, because you're sitting and feeding, whether it is bottle or breast, for many, many hours, and you're gonna find out like 3 minutes into that feeding that you're starving. Just have the food all around you. And that's what your partner is for.
Heather,
Absolutely.
I love the expression of you're in charge, the partner is in charge of output and the person who
Yes.
birthed the baby is in charge of input. But
Yes.
you could also say the partner's in charge of input to the birthing person,
Yes.
you know?
It's like a fun food cycle
Yeah.
of like feeding and pooping and for everyone
I'm
involved.
actually teaching New Baby and Postpartum Ready, which is a class that I developed with Jeanette's urging after the birth of my after the birth of my first baby when I was pregnant with my second. And long story short, she was like, I want you to teach a baby care class for me. I'm busy with breastfeeding stuff. And I said, well, I'm not teaching a baby class like I had to do at the hospital, because teaching someone to diaper and swaddle and bathe a baby doll is a total waste of time. You might as well give them a feral cat and ask them to do the same thing. If you want me to teach a baby care class, it's going to be like how to set yourself up for success for the 6 weeks postpartum, because I was not set up for success and I struggled really bad. And she's like, well, then teach that class. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's how New Baby and Postpartum Ready came about, which I'm actually teaching tomorrow if anybody's interested that's listening, which will be April 28th. But the reason why I bring this up is one of my slides in that presentation is a picture of The Rock, you know, like the wrestler, the actor,
Yes.
that is feeding his wife while she is breastfeeding their baby. And I just think that's such an awesome picture, because this big masculine guy, you know, is like on his knees putting food into her mouth while she breastfeeds the baby. Because when you're learning how to nurse, or even just learning how to hold a new baby for the first time, newborns are like kind of like potatoey, jello-y bags of like mush, right? Like it's kind of hard to, you do it with 2 hands. And so you often don't have a hand to put food in your mouth, you know, so if someone can do that for you, it's very
I have
helpful.
held many a banana to a new mom's mouth. Like, it's fine. Just, it's okay. Like, this is where we're at, guys. It's okay. Yeah,
you're holding your boob, you're holding the head, you know, you're like, ah.
And
So
I will say that there is like, I've also had the opportunity to work with lots of families from different cultures, and it seems to be a pretty, maybe this is like super stereotypical American thing, where it's like the most like pushback on the like, I can do it myself, like comes from like this country. That it's like, I'm like, no, I'm gonna feed you the banana now. Like, whereas like other places are like, yeah, awesome, thank you so much, because they are oftentimes raised with a much greater village mentality, and that is such a disservice that we provide here. So I am so happy that you teach a postpartum class, because I feel like, not to say that there isn't a lot that needs to be like learned and focused on in birth, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty short period of time, even in like a really long one, in comparison to that whole postpartum period. I mean, like, they're yours now you keep them for a long time, but like postpartum itself, you know, and it goes up and down. Like, one of the other things that I tell partners to do is set a reminder on your phone to go off when your baby is 3 weeks old, because you guys are gonna be like totally like, after like day 2 and 3, where there's so much cluster feeding, and you're like, then things start to settle back down, and you're like, okay, and like some nights are good, some nights aren't so good, and it goes back and forth, but you kind of feel like you've got it on lock. And then week 3 happens, and you think you broke your baby, and you've done all of the wrong things, and you don't know what happened.
So true. It's like, bring out phone coming back to me now.
Your phone dings, and you're like, right, Heather told us this would happen at 3 weeks. You didn't break your baby. You're just going through it again. It'll happen again a little while later. But like, those are like those funny things. And it's like 3 weeks sneaks up on you, especially in quarantine time. Like, we are in the weirdest time warp right now, guys. But like, just had that happen with my client, that this was the week that they wanted to go down to 2 overnights a week. And I was like, okay, he's going to be 3 weeks on Monday, like, just remember. And last night it was like, can we actually make it 3 nights this week? I was like, yes, we can, because it comes out of, you know, left field. Amanda has 4 children. I'm sure that she has been has had that 3 week surprise hit before.
Yeah. She's focusing right now. Does anybody have any questions for Heather about their experience or their future experience or comments you want to add? Oh, you're all perfectly ready.
Yes, good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Did anybody have experience with a postpartum doula or interview anybody or thought about it before? No. I know a lot of people don't hear about it, so good for you guys. You're hearing about it, so you're here. So both Melissa and Heather, if you could go back in time to when you were pregnant with your first baby, what do you wish you could tell yourself about parenting a newborn?
You want to go
Oh,
first,
yeah.
Melissa?
Yeah, Melissa first.
Me first. Okay. Honestly, I would have liked to tell myself that I was not going to get anything done for a very long time because I am absolutely type A. I like things in a row. I have high expectations for myself. And I felt that I was going to be very competent as a new parent because I was a labor and delivery nurse for 7 years and a big sister and a babysitter and the greatest auntie in the world. And I thought that I really had it on lock, because I knew how to take care of a baby. But I had completely underestimated what it is like to birth a baby and recover from the birth of a baby. And like Heather said, be so messed up in your sleep because it's just different. Even if you have the best sleeping baby, they're still waking up every 3 hours to eat, whether it's breast milk or formula. And that's just not the pattern that most people are used to. And I always joke that, yeah, I've pulled all-nighters before. When I was in my 20s, I would, I'd go to school all day. Then I'd work at Bay State Medical Center for 7P to 7A. Then I'd drive from Springfield back to Amherst. I would do tours from 9 in the morning until probably 3 in the afternoon. Then I would work as a waitress. And then I would come home and crash, but I could crash for like 15 hours. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I might have had days where I've stayed up, but then there was always a time where I could catch up. And that's just not the case with postpartum. You have to find little bits of time to catch up. And so I had these high expectations that I was going to get a lot done because I was just going to be taking care of a baby and I was going to be home and not have to work. And I had 8 whole weeks off. I'm doing scare quotes here for anybody that's listening on the podcast because I just want to punch myself in the face. I want to go back in time and punch some sense into myself because that was not at all what happened. It is a full-time job to recover from birth and to care for a new baby 24/7 with, on little to no sleep or just a big change in your sleep. And so if all you feel like you are doing for the first 3 weeks at least is sitting on the couch watching Netflix, holding your baby and feeding them, then you are doing it right. I wish I could have told myself that because I just kept feeling like I was such a slouch, that I was getting nothing done, that I was, just everybody was getting so much more done than me. And it's just not true. So when I had my second, that's one good thing about having a second is that I had the perspective of, oh my God, I'm going to cherish every single moment I have with this baby on my chest because I know that I'm never going to watch real TV again once they hit like 12 months old. It's all Paw Patrol after that. So find some nice shows that you've always wanted to sit down and binge and know that, yeah, okay, I feel like I'm doing, quote, nothing now, but I am recovering and I am nurturing my baby. And those are all very, very important things. So that's what I would tell myself. What about you, Heather?
I would yell at myself to ask for help. I said at the beginning of this that I was, like away from family and friends and all of that. I didn't know any, like I had never went to like a mom's group or anything like that with my oldest. I moved back to Massachusetts when my youngest was 2.5 months old because that's how much not fun it was. Asking for help is like nothing that you could ask for is off limits. If it would delight you to see your partner like do cartwheels, I mean, like, I don't know their skill level, but like you made a whole human being and got them out of your body. You deserve cartwheels if that is what will please your soul, okay? But on like a more logistic level, like I remember my friend coming to visit me when I was 3 weeks postpartum and answering the door because my husband went to go and pick her up, and I was like, I don't wear shirts anymore and I have milk shooting out of me at all times. I got mastitis the like next day that she was there. She came there for like 3 days, didn't really know what to do because she's an only child. She had her kids are like 3 and 1 now, and she didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to ask her what to do. Like she made me like spaghetti one time, which was super nice, but she was there for like 4 days and she was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, I don't know what to do either. Like I had no idea. And I will say that like he's now my ex-husband, but at the time he was an incredibly supportive partner. I didn't change like a single diaper for the first like 2 months solid. He changed every single diaper, which was awesome. But I struggled with breastfeeding. I would scream every time my baby would latch. My house became in total disarray because even though it would give me anxiety to see it looking so messy, I didn't want to put more onto somebody's plate to ask them to do something. And like I remember like calling people and just being like, can somebody help me through this? But I didn't have any peers that had gone through it. I know that there are some fantastic virtual like mom groups right now, I think through this fabulous organization itself. And those are invaluable, because even if you feel like, I think we're doing kind of okay, you could probably be doing even better. And if you're doing okay, there's probably a mom you're going to talk to who's not doing okay. And as much as saying things to help comfort her or make things easier for her, or be like, oh yeah, we had that, but you know what, we got this really weird product from Amazon and it totally has like made all the difference. That will obviously help the person that is struggling, but it is going to help you when you can feel like, I just like totally passed on a mom tip to them. Like that was awesome, which is really nice because that's something that is going to be really lacking right now in, I mean, any of the lying in period, but certainly when we have to stay 6 feet away from everybody. So
I love that. I'm going to start saying that, Heather, because you're so right. I never thought to say it, but one of my favorite parts about going to new moms groups was not only getting help, because even as a labor and delivery nurse, trust me, there was so much I did not know. So I'm saying that because if you feel like I've never even held a baby, I never babysat, like how am I going to be a new mom? Like, don't worry. You know, as a meme I saw on the internet once said, we all started off parenthood wearing adult diapers, Janice. Okay, so like, we're all kind of in the same boat. You know, nobody's more ready than anybody else just because they're a nurse, for example. But it was once I kind of graduated to being like one of the moms with the older babies, right? It felt so good to be able to pass on that stuff that had helped me, that I had learned. It was so awesome. It felt so good. It was such a mood boost to do that. And you got to find you gotta find your parent tribe, your mommy and daddy tribe, right?
yeah.
Nicole, don't mean to put you on the spot, but does any of this ring true to you? Has any of this been similar to your experience, or can you share like something you wish you could tell yourself if you could go back 6 weeks? I see you're nursing little Charlie here, who's 6 weeks old.
So I would say the biggest thing that I was looking forward to was like the mom groups. The hospital that I delivered at, they had a popular boob group that I was really excited to go to, and figured once a week, even though it's an hour drive, I'm going to go, I'm going to socialize with other moms. But with everything that was starting to happen, that was definitely out the window. But when they say that breastfeeding is not easy, it is not. It's definitely a learning curve for mom. It's a learning curve for baby. And also asking for help can be hard. I finally reached out to a lactation consultant after 5 weeks of having toe curling pain whenever Charlie would latch. And I wasn't to the point where I wanted to give up, but I was hoping that there was an easier answer. And it was a super easy answer. It was just the answer of a breast or a nipple shield, and it was a total game changer. So that really opened my eyes to asking for help, and there can be really simple solutions. But yeah, a lot of what you guys are saying are definitely true. Definitely true.
Nicole, what do you think prevented you from reaching out for that help? And I'm not asking to like make you upset in any way, but that is so very common. Like you probably had heard of a lactation consultant before. You knew it was an option, but it took 5 weeks to reach out. So I'm asking because somebody could anticipate feeling the same thing and be like, oh, I remember Nicole said that. No, I'm going to reach out sooner. Any insight?
Well, I am a first-time mom, so I knew breastfeeding. I heard breastfeeding was going to be a little hard. I just kind of thought that this was the course, and it was going to take a really long time for the nipples to toughen up and for his latch to work. I really just didn't know. The other piece was I loved my lactation consultant at the hospital that I delivered, but with everything going on, they're so busy, and I was only able to do a phone conference with them, not like video. So I didn't really want to pester them. But then I did find out the visiting nurse that came to check his 2-week weight was also a lactation consultant. And I was like, she's been here once. I'm just going to throw it out to her. I don't know if she's still practicing as a lactation consultant. So it's just those two things, not wanting to bother the lactation consultants that I loved, because it was just a phone conversation, and it's kind of hard for me to explain what's going on and for them to see. I forgot my other train of thought. But yeah, sorry. And just being a new mom and not knowing, okay, how long does it really take to finally breastfeed without using 2 hands or without my toes curling?
I have to jump in here. I think, what you're saying about hearing that breastfeeding hurt and that it takes a while for your nipples to toughen up, and, that lactation consultants weren't available and that you couldn't go to the group. Like, so much of that is unfortunate because so much of that isn't even true. Your nipples aren't supposed to hurt when you're nursing. That skin does not toughen up. That's literally not biologically what happens, but that's what a lot of us are reading or hearing or other people are telling us. And so that's what right? And so I just want to make sure that, that everybody listening knows that that's actually incorrect. And there are a lot of us that are doing virtual visits, and, having a visiting nurse is also a lovely thing. I don't know how many of those agencies are still doing that. But, if you can do that, that's a nice thing. But the other piece of that is not all visiting nurses are trained in the same way for lactation that some of us who do private practice full time are. So, kind of figuring out like, who do you need to ask? Who's the right person for your issue? And if you get help and then it doesn't fully resolve it, keep asking who's around. And the last thing is, like Heather mentioned, I have a group that I do every Friday. Melissa came to it for years, and that's online now, and will be until we're allowed to meet as groups again. But that's really helpful. But there's lots of other groups like that. And now, because it's virtual, you can attend groups that are happening in all parts of the country because there's no limitation. So if you're up at 2 a.m., I bet you there's a group somewhere online that's doing it. I keep joking I'm going to do a group for 2 a.m. and see who shows up, but I haven't ventured to do it yet.
I would totally be in that party just for fun. Hanging out.
I'm still up with a teething 9-month-old, so.
Right. Karina, you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a question. So I plan on being on that Friday one, the second my baby's delivered.
Oh, I want people to come when they're pregnant. It's even better when you're there and when you're pregnant.
Well, I'm working, so we'll see about that.
Yeah.
We'll see. But one of the things that I've been increasingly frustrated with in a lot of places are doing these really good resources online like this, and reading all the books and all of that sort of thing. But I'm getting super, super frustrated that the advice on all of these things is to ask for help and people to come to your house. And it's just not an option right now. you know, the virtual classes with people are great, but I haven't seen anything anywhere about like, you can't have somebody come to like help you in these different ways. So I'm just wondering if there's any advice from people who are moms right now as to like, if you didn't have the option of someone coming to your house to help, what sort of things would you do instead? It's just, I don't know. It's a pet peeve every time I see a book, like have someone come clean your house. Like,
Right.
well,
Yeah, but some of the stuff you can get virtually. Like no one's going to clean your house
Yeah.
virtually, right? But, you know,
like what?
there are
Like,
some people that are like Heather's doing in person because sometimes that's appropriate. That may not be appropriate for every family, but you know, I can do a whole lot as lactation. There's an occupational therapist that I know that's doing online support. There's even some chiropractors now that are doing online support and therapists. So a lot of the people where, you know, you're reading, they can come to your house. They can come to your house just through Zoom, you know, or another platform. And sometimes it's shocking how effective that can be. But it won't clean your bathroom or fold your laundry, that's for sure. So
I
hear
also second that we need to think outside the box. So what I have people do when they take my new baby ready class, for example, is write down a list of all the things that you do, right? As the, you know, the co-person in your relationship, for example, or as the person that runs your house. What do you do? Do you do grocery shopping? Do you do the laundry? Do you do the dog walking? What do you do? Okay, now write an arrow next to each one of those and put somebody else's name there. Okay, that might be your partner if you're lucky enough to have one, but maybe you don't, or maybe your partner is going back to work because they're essential personnel. So can you hire a dog walker? They don't have to come into your house to do that, but can they do that? Or can somebody in your family come and walk your dog for you? They don't have to come into the house to walk the dog. Can somebody shop for groceries for you? Or can you sign up for Instacart now and figure out how that works? Or there's a lot of stores, restaurants that are doing local produce deliveries to different, you know, that's how they're making their own revenue because they can't open the restaurants now. Can somebody come by your house and you can leave the laundry on the porch and they can go bring it to their house or to a laundromat and do your laundry? I mean, I'm not saying you would want any of these things, but we have to think outside the box. The other thing too is there a family member in your family that you feel comfortable with their amount of social distancing? Right? Do you have a family or friend that also has been working from home for the last 5 weeks and isn't going out of the house, and you would feel comfortable having them come over to help? Every family has to make the decision that works best for them, but we're at a much different place now at 5-6 weeks into this pandemic than we were when we first started. And we talked about this in episode 3 with the pediatrician, because somebody called in or emailed, I think, and said, you know, I'm having my second baby and they're telling me that my partner can't leave the hospital. He has to stay with me throughout the, you know, 3 to 5 day hospital stay. I need someone to watch my daughter, but I'm not supposed to have anybody come into my house. What the heck am I supposed to do? Well, the pediatrician was so funny. She was like, yeah, well, you're going to have to find someone to come into your house and watch your baby. What else are you going to do? You can't bring him to the hospital, right? You can't send him to an orphanage. So the answer can't be that everybody can 100% socially distance from everybody else in their life forever. You know, having one other person in your family that you feel comfortable with their level of quarantine and safety and precautions, helping watch your 2-year-old daughter while you go and have your baby, is more than appropriate. It's not the same thing as going to a concert with 10,000 people, right? That could spread this virus. So think outside the box, write down the things that you do and try to brainstorm with your partner about ways that you can get other people to help you do that. Because whether or not you're in a pandemic, as Heather so wonderfully talked about in the beginning of this podcast, you are not going to be able to do all of those things and heal well and feel well postpartum. You won't. And if you try to, you're going to lose blood. You're going to get sick. You're going to feel fatigued. You're going to be anemic. You're going to have trouble with your stitches healing. You're going to have more swelling. You're going to have trouble breastfeeding if you're not resting and you're exhausted. So those are all things that are real life, that really, really happen to real people. They really, really happened to me because I didn't ask for any help when I had my first baby. And so, you know, my partner went back to work in a week and I thought I could do it all myself, and you just can't. So before we get to you, Claudia, Anuja had raised her hand.
I just want to touch on what
could you?
I think that with the COVID, some people that don't get paternity are able to stay home longer, like the dads and partners and stuff, they're able to stay home longer as childcare while mom recuperates. They just have to know to look into it.
Absolutely. Yes. Good point. Anuja, what was your question?
So I think you answered part of my question, Melissa. My question was, I have a 5-year-old, and for my 5-year-old, my mother came from India, and I was nodding my head with everything you guys said, because
I'm so happy to hear that.
It was really wonderful because I really got to recover. And Jeanette knows that I have partially a background in public health, and I knew how important breastfeeding is. And in spite of everything, you need the support, to get through that initial phase. And I was wondering, like and I had a meeting with my pediatrician today, and one of the things he said, oh, you have to, make sure that your baby's socially distanced and da-da-da-da. And I was thinking, how do you manage that and rest? If, you gave some ideas, Melissa. I was wondering, like, in this whole situation, if Heather had some thoughts about it.
So I guess that what I would say sort of goes into what Melissa was saying, which is like adjust your expectations. So if what is happening is that like there isn't anyone, like you've looked into it, there's not going to be somebody that you do feel comfortable with their level of social distancing, that it's not going to be able to come over and help out and things like that. Yep, you do still need to, rest and do all of those things. And so like, what does that look like now? Like maybe your house is a super gross mess. Maybe you're the person who said that you would never buy pre-cut vegetables and sliced strawberries, and they're more expensive, but like that's going to be the only way that you can fit it in, is that there is, sliced strawberries in a container that was delivered from Instacart, and like that's how you're doing it. So I think that like part of that then is just, this might make some people upset, but like, get paper plates. Get, like, if you want them to be like compostable, like whatever. I honestly give them at every baby shower that I go to, and I'm like, don't tell the earth, but like this is what needs to happen right now. Because if you're going to be stressed out if you have dirty dishes, then we're going to eliminate dirty dishes. Done. Like, turn it over, we're good. If you were planning on cloth diapering and like you're like, I can't fit that in, great, you're going to use disposable diapers now. So just sort of like turning yourself over to the experience. And like that's the cool part for you, is that you have like a 5-year-old, so you have an idea of like what to expect and stuff. And so probably some of your expectations have changed in general as to what you expected postpartum to be like from before you had your 5-year-old to next kiddo. But yeah, it's really tricky, because there is only so much that you can fit into a day and still be able to rest and recover for yourself. So part of that just might be changing what you think needs to get done and prioritizing yourself, because you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Absolutely. Maybe we should, Jeanette, have a podcast that's called I Never Thought I Would Ever, ...
Yes.
With a bunch of parents talking about, I'll give you one. I'm going to be very honest with you. I am a germaphobe, type A, I never ever thought in a million years. I knew my kids would have McDonald's once or twice. I knew they'd have high fructose corn syrup at a birthday party. I wasn't like that high and mighty, but I never in my million years thought that if a kid peed in my bed, that I would just roll over to a spot that didn't have pee on it and just keep sleeping. And I want you to know that I have done that, because I have been that tired. And I thought in my head, well, pee is sterile, so this is okay, right? That's how tired I was. So if this ever happens to you, I want you to know that you are not alone.
One of my things that I say is, like, don't worry, you'll know you're really a mom when you're feeding your baby while going to the bathroom at the same exact time. And everybody is like, oh, I'm never gonna do that. And I could probably
I call that the advanced move. That's the advanced move.
Oh yeah, that's an advanced move. That's
I
an
have
advanced
so
move.
many text messages that I have gotten over the years that it's like, you're gonna be so proud of me. And I'm always like, I am so proud of you, but what's up? And they're like, pooped with my baby on my boob today. And I'm like, yay, welcome.
So true. Oh God, it's so true. Oh man. Nicole, I had another question for you. So, we talk about the struggles with recovering in a quarantine, but is there anything that has been unexpectedly nice about having a postpartum recovery in a quarantine? And maybe I'm putting my head on the chopping block here because maybe there's nothing, but I was just curious.
I do have to say, since breastfeeding was a little tricky, being able to be at home and be totally topless and not have to worry about my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, anyone unexpected coming over was really a blessing in disguise. I'm also very thankful that I had Charlie kind of for at least New Hampshire, the earlier part of the pandemic. My mom and his parents have been the only ones to hold Charlie at least once, but they at least got that experience. And then we kind of nixed everything because things were getting a little heightened. The weather has really been good. When my mom comes to drop off groceries on the porch, we go for a walk and we have our social distance. And that way I'm getting a little exercise. I'm able to see my mom. She's able to see Charlie, even though it's from a distance. That's been really helpful. So yeah, between the walks and being able to be topless and not have to worry and not also have to be stressed out. I'm really tired. I don't know if I have the energy for this visitor. Maybe they could wait a little bit because I was a little apprehensive about how am I going to juggle my healing, learning about Charlie, and then also people coming and wanting to visit and hold him. Am I going to be okay with that? So yeah, there's definitely been some pros.
He sounds adorable. He agrees, I think.
Yes, he does.
He's like, I get mama all to myself.
Yes. Well, and that I do have to say that is probably one thing that is always on my mind because I am the only one home with him and the only one holding him. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to be that mom that he will only get used to me holding him. So that's always been in the back of my mind. But at the same time, he's healthy, we're healthy. I don't think it's going to be anything that I can really change right now, but I just kind of keep that in the back of my mind.
What do you say about that, Jeanette? I hear that a lot. People worried that they're going to spoil their newborn. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't invent the phrase, it's no such thing as spoiling a newborn. Like, it's literally been proven. Neuroscientists who special in infant brain development have shown that that's just not true. I think, from a mammalian point of view, we would never look at a gorilla and their baby and be like, wow, man, it's a shame that other gorillas aren't holding that baby. That poor gorilla, that baby gorilla is never going to get used to the other. I think we would never think of that, or, we look at zoo animals and we're like, oh my gosh, the baby giraffe was just born. Oh no, the baby giraffe is only in the container with its mom this whole time. This is going to be a problem. Like, we don't, I love to think outside that, like, our cultural norms of what we say to each other is really not, it doesn't reflect the truth from the dawn of time of humans and other animals. And, yes, to give you a break could be good, but some parents don't want a break. They love cuddling that baby. I think it's figuring out what works for you. So I wouldn't worry about the baby getting too attached. But even if you had, and I've witnessed this many times, I'm sure Melissa has as well, I'm sure Heather has too, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families over the years, thousands of families over the years, like, even if you had, 10 other people living in your compound or your little area where you had like aunts, uncles, friends, neighbors, and they were constantly coming over and bringing you food and holding the baby, there's a point that your baby's going to want you because you smell like milk. Or even if you're not breastfeeding, they know your heartbeat, they know your voice because they were just inside you for 9 months. So they're going to want you anyway, even if you haven't been the person holding them a lot. It's fascinating. They just know you and they want you.
Keep up the good work, Nicole. You're doing it right.
But I think the quarantine
your
is
baby
helping
is,
people do that time with their babies. They're kind of forced to do it, but in a way it's really beneficial. The babies are loving this.
I actually saw an article on Facebook the other day. It was an anecdotal editorial from some midwives in UK that said that they're going to start studying it because they want to see if you know, their hunch is right, but that they feel anecdotally that they're having higher breastfeeding rates at their postpartum visits because there's no visitors going into the hospitals anymore. And so we're, you know, those new parents in those few first days of life are, like Nicole so wonderfully put, topless and skin to skin with their babies and doing breastfeeding on demand instead of constantly being interrupted by visitors that stay too long at the hospital. So I would love to see that study because I 100% agree that as an evening shift nurse, especially, I work 3 to 11. I am constantly trying to facilitate rest, education, and uninterrupted breastfeeding for my patients. And it's an uphill battle because before the pandemic, that's 3 to 11, was basically 3 to 8 p.m. was when most of the visitors would come and exhaust the parents and take the baby away. And, you know, so I believe it. I believe it. But I'd like to read the study too.
Well, I wish they would figure out a way to do a study of those who got home, you know, because every day is just more helpful and magical, as Heather puts it, but that's why you need your partner. And sometimes even, I love the laundry idea. I wrote that down. Like, what if you could just put your laundry on your back porch or your front, right in front of your front door, wherever you live, and say, hey, yo, friend, relative, come pick up my laundry, do it. You know, or maybe they just fold it for you. You know, maybe you've done it, you know, but they just need to fold it. Like, how great would that be? Drop off the groceries and fold the laundry out in the hallway, please. It's those little things. It's the little things, you know, it doesn't always have to be the big things, but it gives you more time to cuddle with your baby or get sleep or take a shower if that's what you want to do, but you don't have to take a shower. You know, I had a question for Heather too. What would a virtual postpartum doula visit be like if someone wanted to do that?
Yeah, so one of the first things that I would, if I haven't previously met them, then we obviously like get to know each other. Where are we at? Is there anything in particular that you need to focus on today and dealing with that? But questions that I ask at just about every visit, whether it's going to be virtual or in person, is how's going to the bathroom going? Is that all good? Which can be jarring to people because I really want to know how their poop is. And how's your bleeding going? Because it's going to be a very long time before a medical professional is going to check in with you about that. Or if it's a C-section, how's your incision care going? So doing like a baseline check on like, you know, any swelling. Do you have any sort of like weird pains? And if there's something that it can be like, you know, like I'll get, somebody might say that like this wrist has been bothering me, and again, like I'm not going to offer medical advice, but I can offer a suggestion of like, let's maybe change your breastfeeding position. Maybe that's what it is. Also, maybe we could give a chiropractor a call if it's a persistent, or a physical therapist a call, or like any of those things. So just checking in on how your actual body is going. And then going over systems that we can figure out to make it as a well-oiled machine as we can in your home, and whatever that looks like. So that can be tell your partner that your doula says that this is what's happening now, or getting them into the conversation. I have talked to siblings about what their responsibilities look like, you know, now that they are the older sibling, and things like that. And so much of what my job is, whether it is virtually or in person, is just listening. And hearing truly whatever that is. It can be birth related, it can be not birth related. I have a client who loves to give me updates about the royal family, and that is like her thing. It has been her coping mechanism for a big portion of her postpartum period. for whatever reason, it is what works for her. So listening to stuff like that, bouncing things off, I said earlier, celebrating, commiserating. I am totally going to cheer you on when you poop on the toilet with your baby. You don't have to virtually call me during it. That's fine. And also just, you know, having somebody who is like, yeah, this really sucks. If you are super irritated by the way somebody breathes, I will champion their terrible breathing too. If you're on like a fundamental level of like, I can't believe I had my baby during a quarantine, like this is so unfair, and I can't believe this is happening to me. Of all of the times, because I had all of these plans and now none of it matters, nothing of it. Like, I'm a person who is a generally positive human being, but I'm happy to tell you you're totally right and all of those feelings are totally okay. And so sometimes just having somebody who can sit there and validate all of your feelings. I'm not a mental health therapist, but I've certainly worked with a lot of postpartum moms, and all of the feelings that you're feeling are valid. And sometimes partners don't get that, whether it is a same-sex partner or a opposite-sex partner, like especially if it's an opposite-sex partner, because they don't know what like a period cramp feels like, so they have like no idea what's going on. And just being able to be there, and then also be able to offer advice on how to handle that, whether maybe you also need to get involved into the royal family's goings-ons. I don't know. But that's what that can look like. So they can range between like a minimum of an hour. Trying to go more than 2 hours would not be super successful because babies don't like to operate on that type of scheduling. That being said, screaming children does not bother me at all, but it might make a parental unit not so stoked. So,
But at the same time, I would imagine you're also, you have props there, so you can show them how to baby wear. You can show them a different way to soothe the baby, you know, kind of as you're watching what's going on, giving them tips like, oh, move your hand over here, or oh, that sounds like your baby might need this. Why don't you try that? And it's really helpful. I think it's not just like a talking head in a box like you are right now, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it, you know.
Right.
There's so much where you can use your hands and different props that you have with you, you know. Bouncing on a yoga ball sometimes is a great thing, but you want to show a parent how to do that.
Right.
And there's ways to do that even through video. So it's not just talking to somebody and just listening.
Right.
I think I'm sure you provide lots of practical advice, or just even showing the partners how to do a little massage for her, or like, okay, this is what you want, or I want you to have ready for dinner, like set this up for snacks during the day, and giving very concrete examples as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I know all the listening and talking is good, but I know is super valuable. But I know when I was first pregnant, if somebody said like, oh, it's someone to listen to you, I didn't really get that as valuable. And then I did actually, the hospital I gave birth in for my first baby, I had a home birth the second one, but they had they had a program where somebody would call you once a week, and I was really resistant to it. And she was really good about just being persistent, like asking you the right questions. And it was interesting to sort of watch myself realize over time that it was actually helpful. I never met this person. And that was the whole point, was that they would just ask you probing questions, and it ended up being way more helpful than I ever thought. So
that's a really cool
program. That is a super cool program. And I'd like to even say, like, if you're thinking, well, I have a friend who has kids, so she can be my postpartum doula. The benefit of having somebody like Heather isn't that she's a mom, although that is valuable because she has personal experience going through what you're going through. But it's the same thing about nursing too. It's the amount of other parents she has had the privilege of caring for, the amount of other babies they have had the benefit of caring for. That, you know, because sometimes you are commiserating with a friend and you're like, my baby won't sleep no matter what. And they're like, oh, I don't really know what you mean because my baby sleeps really well. You know, or, you know, you're trying to talk to a family member, even if your mom or your aunt has had many children herself, and it doesn't matter about the fact that you are worried about your partner chewing, right? You know, just be happy that you have a partner, because some people don't. It's like, that's not helpful. But, you know, somebody who works with new families, right? Not just is someone that loves you or someone that has kids, someone that works with new families is an expert because of all of the experiences that they bring to the table. Oh, well, this worked for one client, or this is something I learned at a conference, or this is something I read in a book, or this is something that worked for me, or why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? And when you say, I'm just so annoyed with my partner because they're chewing so loud, you know, not only in a joking way can she like commiserate with you, oh, I totally understand, but it's not that postpartum doulas are medical professionals, but they know a lot about what doesn't sound normal. So when that just kind of witching about your partner now starts to seem like you're ruminating and having negative thoughts and obtrusive thoughts, and you're, you know, struggling to connect, and maybe, you know, they know that this is now not normal. This is something I can help you find a therapist for, or reach out to somebody for, or, you know, it's more than just, you know, their own personal experience. It's all the experiences of all the families that they've gotten the pros of taking care of, you know.
And I learned so much from other parents, you know, like there's
Absolutely.
really cool stuff that I can learn in all of these professional settings, but like I am constantly getting shown things by parents that I'm just like, that's so brilliant. Why didn't anyone ever show me that? Like I had a kiddo who we could not figure out how to keep the pee in this kid's diaper. Like we couldn't do it. Like he was like in between sizes and we didn't know what to do. And she was like, called me, she's like, figured it out. It's a double diaper situation. Cause like, I mean, we had tried everything. I've been at this for like, I've changed a lot of diapers. And so we were like, okay. So he goes with the newborn diaper and then the full size diaper. And I was like, if you've cloth diapered, it was the same idea as like a cover. So if it didn't make it, and somehow just the magic of knowing that there was a second diaper to catch this fallout was there. We didn't wind up, it wasn't like we were going through 2 diapers with every diaper change now. It just seemed to somehow seal it in for this guy. I don't know. But like that has something that I've been able to use since then, that it's like, all right, we have these newborn diapers. There's like 4 left. We don't need to like suffer through blowouts just because we don't want to like waste the money. Like we're going to double diaper it up and it's going to be all right. And yeah, so that's one of those really cool things that comes from, like you were saying, working with all of the different families, is that I learn all sorts of cool stuff. There's always new products coming out that some are, you know, awesome luxuries, and some are like, please do not waste your money on that. That's not necessary. But like, guys, they make booger scoopers just for your kid, which is like way easier than the suction device. They did not have booger scoopers for me.
Seriously. I love that.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add? We should probably start to close the call and finish up. Any last questions for Heather? Or Heather, any last comments you want to make? Encouragements and tips?
For anyone who is looking to, or not looking to, who will be having a baby shortly, I do want to say that the feedback that I have heard from parents that have recently had it, and Nicole, maybe you can speak to this, there was a lot of anxiety about like what to expect going into a hospital during this time period. And the overwhelming response that I've heard is that they got really great care, and that they felt really safe and comforted. And obviously I can't speak to whatever your birth is going to wind up looking like, but it has seemed to be that there's been lots of people who have been having still a birth that it's as close to what they were hoping for as it could be. And so far, knock on wood, nobody has come out with any COVID as well. So just hopefully a little bit of anxiety relieving for that, if that's something that's potentially on your mind.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Heather, for being here. If you guys want to learn more about Heather, you can go to heatherthedoula.com. And we'll also add that to the website so that you can find that easily. And we have another one coming up on Wednesday with Melanie Solort, who's an occupational therapist who specializes in pediatrics and infant development. And we will be talking about all the things you can do at home with your baby so that you can start helping support your baby's development. So that'll be a good conversation. Melissa?
Awesome. Yes. Do I sound all right? I was having some internet troubles.
Yes, you are now.
All right. So, like I always say, if you learned even one teensy tiny morsel of helpful information today, please don't be stingy and share with a friend near or far that is either pregnant or parenting a young baby. And if you want to laugh your stretch pants off while learning about childbirth, babies, and breastfeeding, please consider taking a live and interactive Zoom class with Jeanette or I while quarantining. Virtual lactation consults and support groups are also available. And again, you can be anywhere around the country or world and join up with those great resources. If you like us on Facebook, Babies in Common on Facebook, we're always posting great articles and videos and resources to help you rock your birth and thrive as a new parent. We hope you will join us because we are a community for you. After all, we all have babies in common. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for calling in, and thank you, Nicole, for sharing your experiences. I super appreciate it. Good luck.